Welcome back. We are now in the second half of 2025, and I figured let's do a full market update, full breakdown of crypto, and understand where we are, where we're going. And I do think that we've identified quite a few interesting things in the charts that you're going to want to see. That's what we're going to be doing. It's all going to be about charting the prices, how to pull profits, and really kind of cycle rotations from one thing to another to another. And we upload every single day on this channel. Sometimes we do deep dives into individual cryptocurrencies. Sometimes we just talk about the general macro market and what's going on with Ethereum treasury companies, with Bitcoin treasury companies, and really kind of try to connect the dots so that we can make the best financial decisions for our own portfolios and also foresee what the market may do in the future. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you like these kind of videos, let me know down below in the comments. Also, while you're down there, give the video a free thumbs up, and you can either leave a super chat or click the join or subscribe plus button down below here on YouTube to learn more about becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. I upload every day to bring you the latest happening completely for free. Thanks to all of our channel members and everybody who does support the channel. Let's get right into it. So we've been showing this chart on the channel quite often, right? This is called the psychological of a market cycle. And it shows you, kind of on the way up into the massive bull run, into the euphoric peak, into a little bit of a corrective phase, another peak. Many people call this kind of area complacency or a bull trap, because the bulls get trapped because they think that this is the dip to buy, and then they buy the dip, and then what happens? We just keep dipping and dipping and dipping, right? And so there's going to be a lot. You're going to be hearing a lot in the market, a lot from the experts, quote unquote, a lot from the billionaires, a lot from the key opinion leaders, as they call them, or influencers. Here's the deal. We can just look at the market cycles and also the charts to actually understand where we are. Now, more recently, a lot of people on the channel have been saying, well, Cryptoviser, there's no way we're near the top of the market. And maybe we're not, right? I don't think the overall top forever is, I think we're just going to keep going up forever over the course of time. But in the cycle, right, the Bitcoin halving cycle is 4 years. And so this cycle is not different than the previous cycle. In some ways it is, but not in the 4-year time frame, not in 2 years into the bull run, 2 years into the bear run, right? And then you reset. Well, if we look at MicroStrategy, okay, and you look at this chart, we're going to be looking at macro, which is zooming out, right? And you look at the zoomed out picture, this literally looks like an unbelievable chart, right? You started in 2020, started to move up to $120. Then we went through a bear market. There were massive, I think there was a stock split multiple times. And then again, end of 23 into 2024, we had a little bit of a jump. And then end of 2024 into 2025, we had a massive pump in the market. Now, MicroStrategy continues to buy more and more Bitcoin, right? We know that they're doing that, but they're also taking out more and more debt. But I just want you to pause for a quick second and look at this chart, okay? Look at this chart and tell me that this chart does not look like where we are here. Okay, hope and disbelief, it's kind of like a bottom, a little bit of a jump up, and then a kind of what they call walking stairs up and down, but more with an upward drift, right? Higher highs and higher lows. And then massive run up, and then a euphoric peak, a corrective phase, another kind of stable peak, and then a drop off. Okay, I want you to just look up to euphoria right here, right? Just this first part of the chart. You guys see it? Now I'm going to go back to the MicroStrategy chart, and I want you to look at the similarities here. So now I have them side by side, and you tell me that this does not look like a euphoric peak here, and then the pullback, and now we're in complacency phase. I would imagine a lot of the MicroStrategy bulls would look at this chart and say, oh no, Cryptoviser, we're in the thrill part right now. We still have a lot more higher to go, and maybe we do. But we also know that MicroStrategy has all of these debt products, Stride, Strike, Strife, and Stretch, right? And by the way, these are all dividend paying debt facilities, and the way the MicroStrategy is going to be able to pay these dividends is by selling more MicroStrategy shares on the open market. But right now we're in an uptrending bull market. What happens if Bitcoin price drops by 40%? The likelihood that MicroStrategy price is going to drop by 40% is very high, but it's probably going to drop even more because we know that the MNAV, which is the multiples to the net asset value, right? The underlying Bitcoin. Right now they have about $71 billion in Bitcoin holdings, and their market cap is $113 billion. So that delta is the premium. In a downtrending market, right, the MNAVs usually compress. And so you're going to have a downtrending market where the price potentially is going to drop 40%. Like, let's say the Bitcoin price drops 40% from where we are now. Okay, let's just do the math on that. We're at about $118,000 minus 40%. And that will bring us to $70,000. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Cryptoviser, we're never going to hit $70,000 again. Whatever. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will. Doesn't matter. Let's just use this for the example. So if that goes down to 70,000, this is going to drop by about 40% as well. So if we do the math on that, 400 minus 40% is $240 price. But then there's a potential that this MNAV will also be compressed, which means that the price of the stock is going to drop almost in half as well. So it's going to go back down to about $140 or $150. And so there's a lot of people that think that that can't happen. But when you look at this chart and you overlay it with the euphoric area of the chart, this looks exactly like that. I mean, I think that you guys would agree with me here. And so we know that MicroStrategy is going to be selling more shares on the open market, that they have all of these debt facilities, that they're creating more debt facilities, which tells me they're having issues raising money in their previous debt facilities. So they create a new debt facility, and they're just going to create more and more debt facilities. Like, I don't think that they can keep up with the amount of purchasing they actually have to keep doing to keep the price elevated forever. And there's a lot of people that are missing the point that, you know, there is a lot of selling going on in the markets. And so this is something to really keep an eye on, because we talk about the psychology of the market charts all the time on this channel. But when I pulled up the MicroStrategy chart and I zoomed it out, I was like, holy shit. This is exactly what this chart looks like. I mean, to a T, which means we are in the bull trap, or following through on the bull trap, because we're at all-time record highs. We already took the massive dip. MicroStrategy keeps selling shares in the open market, and the bulls keep saying, no, we're going higher. They're going to keep splitting the stock. We're going to go to $1,000. We're going to split it, go to 1,000 again, split it again. Can't happen. Cannot happen this cycle. It's over. It is literally over here. And by the way, this doesn't even take into account the Bitcoin treasury companies, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes here. That the Ethereum treasury companies, I should say, not the Bitcoin treasury companies, the Ethereum treasury companies are taking up all of the narrative now, and the narrative is shifting from Bitcoin treasury companies to Ethereum treasury companies. So how is this transition and refocus of Wall Street going to impact MicroStrategy and also MicroStrategy's ability to raise money? And so, as much as the flywheel, as they call it, works on the way up, you could just sell more shares in the open market, buy more Bitcoin, take out more debt, buy more Bitcoin, take out more debt, buy more Bitcoin, sell shares on the open market, pay the dividends. It works in a bull market. But what happens in a bear market when everything's happening in the opposite direction? Well, all I could say is hold on to your hats, guys, because MicroStrategy is one to keep an eye on and one to watch. I have never seen any chart look this exact to the psychology of the market chart in the moment. Typically, if you go back and you look after when you're in the bear market, you're like, wow, it's there. But this is literally, we are there, we are here, we're in complacency. And so what happens after the complacency phase? Straight down. But again, this video and this channel is not all doom and gloom. There are a lot of opportunities, and a lot of opportunities people are ignoring and saying, Cryptoviser, you're just trying to shill this crypto. You're just trying. It's like, guys, I'm trying to help you guys understand my investment strategy, my investment thesis, my opinions on these stocks and cryptos. And some of the ones we talk about on this channel, I don't even hold. But I do think that they are good, clean setups. And what are we seeing here? Well, well, well. This is Bitfarms. And I posted on my YouTube community tab, which you can find by just clicking my logo down below, clicking into my channel, and then clicking the posts tab. The more times that you give these videos and click the thumbs up on the posts, the more that you'll see them in your YouTube feed. If you ignore them, YouTube's not going to show it to you. So make sure you guys give this post a thumbs up, give this video as well a thumbs up. That way YouTube knows you want to see more of it. Anyway, I posted this. This is the cleanest chart I've ever seen. This is Bitfarms. Now I'm going to show you the full chart, but it's confirming what I've been saying about Bitfarms. This area right here is what I would call a double bottom. I mean, I have never, part of the place that we're at in this part of the cycle is where you're seeing things in the market that I'm trying to find the circle so that I can circle what I'm looking at here. Here we go. Part of where we're at in the cycle is where you can actually see things occurring within the market that you just theorize, right? It's similar to like the psychology of the markets charts. Like we talk about this all the time, but do we actually see it in play? Well, I just showed you one chart where we do actually see it in play. But now what I'm looking here on Bitfarms chart, and again, zooming this out, let's just zoom it out. I guess it doesn't want me to draw a circle here for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not trying to do this on the video, but anyway, you can see on the zoomed out chart from 2021, double bottom. This looks like a W pattern, right? You guys see this here? W pattern with two bottoms, and basically the second bottom was a little bit higher than the first bottom, and that's what we're looking for, right? Higher highs and higher lows. So even when we compare it to the 2023 low, it's higher, higher, and we're gonna have to wait and see. But this specific W pattern indicates what we call a double bottom. And so what does a double bottom actually mean? Well, you're going to want to pay attention to this because a double bottom shows or charts the letter W, and a double top usually charts the letter M. And so what is a double bottom? Well, let's understand. Double bottom patterns are essentially the opposite of double top patterns. Okay, clearly. Results from this pattern have opposite inference. A double bottom is formed following a single rounding bottom pattern, which can also be the first sign of a potential reversal. Rounding bottom patterns will typically occur at the end of an extended bearish trend. The double bottom formation, constructed from two consecutive rounding bottoms, can also infer that investors are following the security to capitalize on its last push lower towards a support level. A double bottom will typically indicate a bullish reversal, which provides an opportunity for investors to obtain profits from a bullish rally. After a double bottom, a common trading strategy includes long positions that will profit from a rising price. So let's break this down. Rounding bottom patterns will typically occur at the end of an extended bearish trend, while Bitfarms has had a very long and extended bearish trend. You can see that right here, dating back from 2021 at the peak, which was about, it says the high was $10, yeah, in January 2021, and then it double topped here at about $8 or $9 in November of 2021. And then it came down to basically the end of 2022, right after the FTX collapse. That was basically the overall bottom of the market. But then we've been in kind of like a little bit of a sideways trading market for the most part. But then it started to drop again, right? And I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that Bitfarms is not an American company. So it wasn't getting the focus that the American companies like Iris Energy, IREN, Cipher Mining, Riot Platforms, Core Scientific, it just wasn't in that narrative cycle. But when you look at the fundamentals of what Bitfarms is doing, right? They have a very high hash rate. They're expanding their US presence. They just announced a share buyback. Riot Platforms is now de-investing from them, right? They're selling their shares, which people are looking at as bearish. I actually look at it as bullish because it tells me that Riot realizes they cannot purchase and are not going to be able to purchase Bitfarms because Bitfarms knows they're worth way more than what Riot offered them, which was like $2.30 a share in 2024. So there's a lot going on with Bitfarms, and they've also made a strategic shift to AI and HPC, high performance compute. And we've been talking about Bitfarms for quite a while. But this double bottom chart tells me game on, guys. Game on. That's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, this is the clearest chart I've ever seen of a double bottom. Now, how high we're going to go after this, I don't know. But this is clearly a double bottom confirmation chart of Bitfarms. The fact that Bitfarms just opened up a second principal executive office in New York tells me they're trying to get their operations at least partially, but more likely than not fully in the United States. And this is something that we've been talking about on this channel. And I don't know whether Bitfarms team do watch these videos or not. I highly doubt it. But we did say on this channel, like, if they pivot into the United States, this is going to be very, very big for Bitfarms because now they're going to be able to capitalize on the AI rollout of a lot of these large companies because they have the infrastructure and the energy pipeline. A lot of companies, a lot of these big Bitcoin mining companies, they don't because they're just solely focused on Bitcoin mining and they haven't made the strategic shift to AI and HPC. And so these are two examples of charts, one bearish, one bullish, in the same general category of crypto. Bitfarms is a Bitcoin mining company. MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin holding company, right? It's two different kind of business strategies around the same asset. But one is holding the asset and that's it. And they're taking out a lot of debt to hold the asset. The other is an infrastructure provider. This is the picks and the shovels, right? Making money on the picks and the shovels, not the actual gold itself. Now, keep in mind, Bitfarms does hold crypto. I think they have a little bit over 1,000 Bitcoin, but that's not their main business line, right? AI and HPC is going to be really big for Bitfarms. Why? Because if we are transitioning, if this chart is correct with MicroStrategy, and therefore basically the Bitcoin price as well, what does this mean for Bitfarms? Because Bitfarms is a Bitcoin infrastructure provider. True. But Bitfarms is different than the other Bitcoin mining companies like Riot Platforms, like TerraWolf is into AI. I would say Marathon and Riot are probably the least involved in AI and HPC. And meanwhile, look at Riot Platforms. Again, Riot wanted to purchase Bitfarms. You could argue that there's a double bottom here as well, because we kind of see a W pattern here. This is more sideways trading, I would say, versus a double bottom, but it is clear a double bottom, right? Although if we zoom in, I mean, these are really close to each other. This one, the bottom was 619, and this one, the bottom was 638. So this is actually a lower low than the previous low. So I would say that that's not a full double bottom formation just yet. Plus, you can see right here that this went up to 1587 on this wick, and this one only went up to 1534. So these are lower highs across the board. You can see lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And also we're seeing lower lows. Very, very close, right? This may be a support level right here. This may be a support level right here. And so support levels will tell you what to keep an eye on. If there's a breakout to the upside, it may continue. And if there's a breakout to the downside, that may continue as well. Remember, charts don't predict what's happening in the market. It can give you hints and clues into what's going on. But again, in a bear market, a company like Riot Platforms or Marathon Digital, I would imagine, are not going to do as well as Bitfarms, because Bitfarms can pivot to AI and put their compute power from Bitcoin mining into AI so they can keep making money, where these other companies that don't really have an AI or HPC thesis or strategy, they're stuck in a depreciating asset, a more difficult Bitcoin environment, and also just lack of usage of the network. And so that could cause issues for a lot of the Bitcoin mining companies. And I think that Bitfarms maybe counter the rest of the Bitcoin mining market, because again, as those stocks come down, the same thing we were talking about with MicroStrategy. If MicroStrategy starts falling because Bitcoin falls, where is the capital going to move? Potentially into Ethereum treasury strategies, potentially into the AI and HPC moves like Bitfarms. And the same thing, I think, in the Bitcoin mining space. The mining companies are potentially going to pivot out and move into more AI-related companies that are actually going to perform well. And so again, we want to invest in things when people are not talking about it or are super bearish on it. I mean, this is clear double bottom, higher highs, higher lows for multiple points here that we're looking at. And they have the infrastructure, and they're doing share buybacks, and they opening up US offices. Like, this is what we want to look for, in my view, especially at this very critical stage in the end stages of the bull market. And that brings us to the Bitcoin price. So again, if we look at the psychological Bitcoin chart, and this is, we'll pull it back to like 2021, and we look at the psychological Bitcoin chart, what you can see here is that it doesn't really look like this, like we're in euphoria in Bitcoin, which we may not be. But Bitcoin may be at the point where it is just going to gradually go up over the course of time. And now that Wall Street is involved and they can, the inflows may be a little bit more consistent, there's a possibility that we're not going to follow traditional hype cycles like this, right? Because Bitcoin's gone up 5x and people still don't feel like we're in a bull market, which is absolutely absurd, but we are. And we moved up fairly high, but it's been a nice gradual move. Very little kind of pumps like we've seen in previous cycles, or speculative, leg ups or gap ups. Now this may occur, but to me, it seems like Bitcoin is probably just slowly going to increase. We'll have little bouts of like major pumps and then kind of sideways trading. But I do think that we're going to test a lot of critical levels. I mean, you can see back in 2021, this is 2021 right here, okay? We double topped, right? Beginning of the year and then end of the year. And then we came down, FTX collapse, and then we went back up basically until the end of last year, right? So we stayed in the range from November of 2020 until November of 2024, a full 4 years. We stayed in a $19,000 to $70,000 range, right? So this was previous all-time high, effectively, right? 19,000 or 20,000 in 2017. That was basically the floor support for the 2020 bull cycle. And then we stayed in the range from the 2021 bull cycle top, 70,000, right, to that $20,000 range. Basically stayed very closely in this for 4 years. And so wherever we top out in the market, the likelihood that we're going to stay range bound from about $70,000, $65,000 until wherever that top price is very, very likely. But that means that we can go down to $70,000. And this is potentially the reason why, when you look at MicroStrategy's average dollar cost average, they're trying to keep it as low as possible in the $71,000 range. So again, a 40% drop from Bitcoin today would bring us down to about $70,000, which is where MicroStrategy's buy price is. Very interesting, right? I don't think that other channels have identified this, that basically for the last 4 years, we've been trading in range from the top of the market in the last cycle to the top of the market in this cycle. And now we're probably over the next 4 years now going to probably range from the top of the last cycle to the top of this cycle. And that's a really good kind of understanding because that kind of puts the floor at around $65,000, right? We'll just say 60 to 70,000. Now, obviously, it can go lower than that, and it could stay higher, but that's kind of like a general point that you want to look for. So anything below that, to me, would be a buy. I mean, you could see that right here at FTX collapse. We went below that $20,000 all-time high from 2017. Everybody was freaking out. What were we doing on this channel? We were buying. We were buying in that range because we knew that was the bottom. And so when we do go into a bear market this cycle, anything under the previous all-time high, anything under the MicroStrategy dollar cost average, that's the buy signal, right? You can buy below MicroStrategy. And by the way, that may be the support level for the bear market, because if we go below MicroStrategy's dollar cost average, $70,000, what do you think these other companies are going to do? They're going to say, yo, go buy, right? Investors are going to tell these other companies, the other Bitcoin treasury companies, go buy as much Bitcoin as possible. Because think about it. MicroStrategy has spent years dollar cost averaging, right? And they're still at 71,000. So if you can get in under what they paid, a lot of companies are going to want to do that, in my view. A lot of investors are going to want to do that, in my view. Now, I could be wrong, but that kind of seems like what the Bitcoin treasury companies would do if we went below that $70,000 price, below MicroStrategy's dollar cost average. And so these are critical levels that we have to keep an eye on in this coming bear market. But the other thing to look at is like the previous cycle's high to 2017 high. This is multiples higher, right, than what we see from the 2017 high to the 2020 high. And I think that we're going to see lower gains in this cycle than we saw previous cycles. It's the law of diminishing returns, as they call it. And that's what we're going to see, because people are going to say, no, Cryptoviser, we're going to go up. This went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 standard deviations. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4.5 standard deviations. So we'll be about 200 to 250,000. While it's possible, it's less likely in my view. But that brings us to Ethereum. Because if we pull out back the Ethereum price, Ethereum has been sideways trading since the last cycle, period. It's been sideways trading. And by the way, going up to back to the double bottom and zooming out charts, what does this look like right here to you? This is a double bottom in 2019 and 2020. Now, if you didn't zoom out, you wouldn't be able to see it. If you were only looking at 1 year, you wouldn't be able to see it. But on a macro level, that was a double bottom. And then what happened after the double bottom? Straight up. It went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 standard deviations. I think that's what a standard deviation. And again, going back to the Bitfarms chart, right? We just hit this double bottom. And this double bottom has been a 7-month double bottom, basically. 7-month. So what do you think is going to happen after this? If you just look at the Ethereum chart, 7 standard deviations higher. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would bring us to $13. That's if we went up 7 standard deviations, which is still, again, right, the record high in November of 2021 for Bitfarms was $9.60. So that would make sense, break through that all-time high and go higher. But yeah, where are we with Ethereum? I mean, this is the entire Ethereum existence practically. And you can see, like, we had a jump up in one cycle. We had a jump up in the next cycle. Again, the first jump was much higher than the second jump, law of diminishing returns. And we've been effectively sideways trading since that high in 2021 and have not even hit the all-time record high again. We keep testing, but we're not hitting it. And so what does this chart look like? I mean, I don't even know what this chart looks like. It just looks like it's been sideways trading and keeps hitting this ceiling. But now that we have institutional interest in Ethereum, there's a very high likelihood we're going to see massive gains. Now, again, the law of diminishing returns. The first cycle we went basically 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 standard deviations higher. The second we went basically 6, so 9, 6. So basically we would probably be at about 3. So that would bring us 1, 2, 3. That will bring us to about $17,000, maybe around there. So that's something to keep an eye on, right? It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to hit this level. It just means that based on the previous 2 cycles, we had 9 standard deviations higher. This one we had 6. So if we go, based on math, this is going to be 3, which brings us to about 17,000, which is kind of in line with what I've been predicting, because it seems to me that the price action on Ethereum is following 2 cycles behind Bitcoin. And so if we look at Bitcoin, when Bitcoin was at this level that Ethereum is at, Bitcoin was basically trading in this level of like $3,000, and then it went up to $20,000, and then it came back down to 3. And so this is very likely, especially with the the interest from Wall Street, the buying from these Bitcoin mining companies like Bitmine Immersion Technologies, like SharpLink. I'll show you this chart a little bit more in depth in a minute. This is Bitmine Immersion Technologies. But back to the Ethereum chart, I think that a lot of people are anticipating $10,000 Ethereum. I think it's gonna take a bit to get to 10,000, right? Because everybody's anticipating that. But you can see right here where $10,000 is. There's not really that much difference from 10,000 to 17,000 on the logarithmic chart that I'm showing you on the screen. This is basically 1 standard deviation higher from 10,000 to that $17,000 pump. So that's why I think 10,000 is going to be basically the ceiling for Ethereum this cycle. I would say anything under 10,000 is highly likely. Anything at or above 10,000 is probably less likely, from the point of most people are going to be able to buy or sell at that point. I think that anything over 10,000 is just going to be, according to the psychological of market charts, I think it's just going to be extreme euphoria, and effectively people are just going to be, not even going to be able to catch the market. I think it's just the market's going to move so fast above 10,000. It's going to be like a day or 2 or 3 days, and we'll come back down. So that's something to look at. I mean, we've really been sideways trading for 3 years, and now we're getting a lot of interest, a lot of excitement. You can see the green bars are popping, and this could indicate a reversal, but we really have to break through this all-time record high first, $4,800. Once we break through the all-time record high, we'll probably waver for a bit, probably have a lot of volatility up and down, people taking profits, people trading. But I think having Bitmine Immersion Technologies, SharpLink, the Ether Machine, Bit Digital, and BTCS, these are just 5 companies that are buying Ethereum for their balance sheets, that are stocks on the open market. I think we'll probably see a few more getting into Ethereum. I think we'll see some integrations into Ethereum, Ethereum layer 2s, Ethereum adjacent chains, Ethereum stable coins. And I think that's going to help push the price up as well, and could potentially put us in that euphoric mode that we saw MicroStrategy hitting as more and more companies were getting into the Bitcoin treasury game, and also the ETFs, because you can really see that we started to see the jump at the end of 2024. And this was about 6 months after we started to see the initial seed investments into ETFs. That's where we started to see a lot more volume going in, and anticipation in entering the election period. And so there's so many different things going on in the market, so many different pinpoints that we have to look at and say, like, why did this happen? Could this have occurred because of this? Could this mimic another ecosystem? To really understand where we need to invest. And remember, these charts don't tell you everything. These just give you clues as to what else is going on. Obviously, it's been trading sideways for a few years. We know all these Ethereum catalysts that could potentially push the price higher. So am I bullish or bearish? Obviously bullish, right? Bitfarms, double bottom, all of these positive sentiment in the market, in the announcements from the company, higher highs, higher highs, higher lows. Am I bullish or bearish? Bullish. When I see MicroStrategy literally looking exactly like the euphoric area and being in complacency mode, bullish or bearish? Well, definitely bearish. And there's positions to play if you're bullish, and there's positions to play if you're bearish. And you can be both at the same time. For instance, I may be bearish on Bitcoin price, but I'm bullish on Bitcoin's technology. I may be bearish on MicroStrategy's price from a stock perspective, but I'm bullish on their thesis for the long term in terms of acquiring Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of different avenues and ways that you can look at this in the market. And the same thing goes for these other Bitcoin related companies, because personally, I think more money is going to be made for the remainder of the cycle in stocks versus crypto. And if you don't think so, you have not been paying attention, because Wall Street is in control of everything. That's what they want. That's what they get. They're in control of everything. And so if you think that they're going to allow crypto to do better than their market, what have I said? What has performed better than Bitcoin in the bear market? The stocks. What has performed better than crypto in the markets? Stocks. I tell you, in 2020 cycle, I made more money on grayscale products than I did on the crypto itself, because it was very easy to just trade the premiums and discounts to the NAV on those products. Same way that people are going to start trading the premium and NAV of MicroStrategy in these Bitcoin and altcoin treasury companies. And now we have the likes of Joe Lubin going on Bloomberg. Again, the narrative shift. And he's talking about Ethereum treasury strategies are better than Bitcoin, and even maybe better than Ethereum. Let's listen to what he says here. And by the way, if you like these kind of videos where we kind of break down the market and break down the charts and different patterns that we're seeing within the charts and how this can lead to more upside or more downside or potential positions in the market that we can capitalize on, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Sometimes we do deep dives into individual topics like we're doing today, and sometimes we just talk about the macro environment. And don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up if you want to help support the channel financially. Click the join button down below or subscribe plus button to become a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. Thanks to all of our channel members. Appreciate all of the support. But let's listen to Joe Lubin.
What is the difference between using an Ether corporate treasury strategy versus Bitcoin?
Well, Michael Saylor's done a brilliant job with his particular implementation of the strategy. Being able to do some of the same things and many other things using Ether is actually much more powerful, because Ether is a productive and yielding asset. So we've been accumulating capital in various ways every single day. We've been instantly turning it into Ether and instantly staking it or restaking it, and we'll take advantage of decentralized finance yielding capabilities. And so we're able to take our Ether and grow it directly. And we believe that we'll be able to accumulate more Ether per fully diluted share much faster than any other Ethereum-based project, or certainly faster than the Bitcoin-based projects.
And this is 100% true, and really what Wall Street investors want. Okay, there is no more savings accounts that you can get 7 or 10% interest rates. And in the stock market, on average, people get between 5 and 12% a year, okay, on average. And so now with these Ethereum-based products, like Joe Lubin said, he must be watching my videos because we've been talking about the productivity of Ethereum through Ether staking, is miles ahead of where Bitcoin is, because Bitcoin is non-productive, meaning you're like MicroStrategy's holding the Bitcoin, but they can't do anything with it right now. Now, maybe they are. Maybe they're rehypothecating it at some. It makes me worried that Michael Saylor won't release proof of reserves, and he's worried about the underlying wallets and the movement of the Bitcoin, because that makes me think they're rehypothecating it, and that's not good. It's really, really bad if they are. I don't know if they are, but it would be bad if they are. And so eventually, I would imagine, as the price goes up and Bitcoin is more integrated into TradFi, I think that they're going to capitalize on this Bitcoin. I mean, they have 600,000 Bitcoin. So think about, even if they just took 100,000 and loaned it out, they could be making 4% on that. Okay, so let's do the math on that. 100,000 Bitcoin, and let's just say they're loaning it out at, let's say 9%, okay? 9%, they're making 9,000 Bitcoin. Well, let's just do it in dollar amounts, okay? Because that's how you guys are gonna understand it the best. So let's say $100,000 times, let's just say $100,000 Bitcoin price, okay? A little bit lower than where we are, a little bit higher than their buy price. 100,000 Bitcoin at $100,000, that's $10 billion that they're loaning out, okay? Now let's say they make 9% on that per year. They can earn $900 million, almost $1 billion, which is a pretty good deal, right? But the risk is so high right now because there's not a lot of Bitcoin denominated products. There's not a lot of interest in that, and basically that ecosystem would need to be a little bit more robust and much higher prices to eliminate the potential downside risk of that trade. But with Ethereum, all they got to do is hold the coins, and then they can stake the coins, and they're going to earn about, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 12%. And I would imagine they could probably do some loaning as well, as we've seen with some of the Ethereum treasury companies. But it's productive. And I think Wall Street is going to be more interested in productive money than non-productive money. And this is why I think that we're going to start to see, as the narrative continues to draw on, more and more focus on Ethereum and Ethereum treasury companies. That brings us to the Ethereum treasury companies, right? These are literally at all-time record lows, right? This is Bitmine Immersion Technologies dating back to 1999. Supposedly their stock used to be worth $672 million. I'm just joking. A lot of that is probably has to do with just conversion rates, because they probably added a lot of shares throughout the years. But it really doesn't matter what the stock is worth or what it was worth before their Ethereum treasury pivot. Because now the company's worth what the company's worth based on the Ethereum thesis and strategy that they're doing. So really, when you look at the chart, there's really nothing to base anything off of. And this is really most of the Ethereum treasury companies. There's nothing to base the valuation off of besides what they're holding. And so charting doesn't really do anything. So you really have to just look at Ethereum. And Ethereum, I mean, from a macro scale, it looks like we're due for a major move to the upside. And especially with all the purchasing we're seeing, especially with all of the news coverage of Ethereum, I just think that this is going to be the best performing crypto moving forward here, at least for a period of time. And I think it's just going to perform better than Bitcoin's going to perform in the near term. And so what is going to occur is potentially we're going to see some of these Bitcoin treasury companies flip to Ethereum. That would be very, very interesting to see. Maybe they'll flip to Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I also think that we're going to see major shakeup in the Bitcoin treasury space, because a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies are buying at all-time record highs. And this is when they're starting their thesis. And this is very, very risky, I believe. Very risky. But as I showed you in today's video, there's a lot of money to be made in the market, right? Generally speaking, where we are in the second half of 2025, I'm bearish on Bitcoin and a lot of the other cryptos that have performed very well. But the ones with fundamentals that have not performed very well and that have institutional interest and have connections to the DeFi ecosystem and into stable coins and into Ethereum DeFi products and into real world assets, even if they're not direct, if they're connected through bridges, through the AG layer, through the eigen layer, through any of these different interoperability type of protocols, they're going to do extremely well over the coming years because Wall Street is getting interested. They are getting involved. And believe this, when we hit macro bottom for Bitcoin, I don't know when that's going to occur. I would imagine when we retest these cycle highs from the previous cycle, which is $70,000 approximately. When we start testing the $70,000 level or lower, there will be buyers and a lot of buyers and a lot of people and companies and products are going to come out of the woodworks and start buying. That will mark the cycle bottom in my view. But we have a ways to go to get there. And we can go a lot higher before then and a lot lower before then as well. But there is still money to be made because even the Bitcoin infrastructure companies can do well. Even Coinbases can do well. Bitfarms, Riot Platforms, Marathon Digital, they can all do well based on what their thesis and their strategy is to continue to move forward with either just expanding their mining operations for Bitcoin, expanding into other crypto ecosystems as well, or AI and HPC. There's also a lot of money to be made in these Ethereum strategy companies because they're all just getting involved right now, where we've basically been flat for 4 or 5 years now in the price of Ethereum. We've had volatility in between. But if you look on the zoomed out chart that we showed, we're flat. And so if Ethereum jumps even just above the all-time record high, if not higher, right? Let's say it just doubles from where we are, from about $3,500 to $7,000. What do you think is going to happen with these Ethereum strategy companies that now their valuations are basically either par or very close to par with their holdings? These potentially are going to perform crazy good, similar to what we saw with MicroStrategy, similar to what this psychology of market chart will look like. But we have to pay attention and we have to know and we have to strategize so that when we do see these jumps in the market, we know what to do. When we do see charts that almost mirror the first half of the market of psychology charts up to euphoria and complacency, the bull trap, we need to know to get out. Because if not, you get caught and then stuck in a position for another cycle, which is 4 years. And if you don't believe me, Ethereum has been sideways trading for 4 years. And I would imagine we're going to see some of these Bitcoin companies trading sideways for 4 years. And MicroStrategy may be one of them because they're not going to let the stock go higher. Because as the higher the stock goes, the more they're going to sell to keep the MNAV low and to keep buying more Bitcoin. Because they have to keep buying more Bitcoin. Because the second they stop buying Bitcoin, their whole narrative collapses and the price collapses and the belief in their thesis collapses. And it's going to take down every Bitcoin treasury company that bought in the $100,000 range at all-time record highs with them. And so you don't want to be in that when that occurs. You want to be in the opposite side of that trade, which I think right now is Ethereum and some of these other infrastructure plays. What do you guys think? Let me know down below if you like these kind of market updates where we go deep diving into the charts, into the narrative, into the cycle, and understand where we are, where we're going, and where we should be positioned. Let me know down below in the comments. Make sure you guys are thumbs upping these videos and also give thumbs up on the posts on my community tab. That way you never miss any of the new content that we post right here on the Cryptoviser podcast every single day of the year. Thanks for watching. Consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join or subscribe plus button down below here on YouTube to learn more about channel membership. Other than that, I'll see all of you on the next video. Invest responsibly, do your own research, and crypto on.